This is TWiT.
Flathub may have just handed Ubuntu and Snaps a gift. So I know in the Linux world, saying something positive about Snap is usually a good way to start a fight. For years, the debate has been Flatpak versus Snap, and app images somewhere in there too, I guess. But Flatpak had the community goodwill. Flathub had the better desktop app story. Snap and Canonical, server-side control, and a whole lot of criticism from people who didn't want their Linux app ecosystem tied that closely to Ubuntu. But now, Flathub has drawn a very hard line on AI. Some might like that, but anyway, according to the new policy, applications containing AI-generated or AI-assisted code, documentation, or other content are not allowed. And this does not just mean the app itself. It includes the Flatpak manifest, metadata, patches, build scripts, and even the pull request used to submit it. In other words, if AI touched the process, Flathub may not want it at all. Now, to be fair, I understand what they're reacting to. Open source maintainers are already overwhelmed, with a wave of low effort, vibe coded apps and pull requests. It can create a ton of review work. And the person submitting that AI generated code may not even understand what it does. So from the maintainer side, this probably feels less like an anti-AI crusade and more like a survival mechanism. But from the outside, this looks like Flathub stepping in the exact opposite direction of where the rest of the Linux ecosystem and the world just seems to be going. Red Hat is building its entire AI platform. Fedora is discussing an AI developer desktop objective. Ubuntu is laying out plans for local inference, AI-assisted accessibility features, and system automation delivered through removable snaps. We've had stories on these the last few weeks. Canonical is basically saying AI is coming, but we want it local and transparent and optional. Flathub, meanwhile, is saying if AI helped build it, we may reject it. And that is where this gets interesting. The old argument was that Flatpak would win the Linux desktop because it was more community friendly and better suited for graphical apps. But if the new developers are using AI as part of their normal workflow and Flathub tells them that even AI assisted documentation or metadata could be a problem, those developers may just simply publish elsewhere. And maybe that's Snap, maybe that's app image, maybe it's direct downloads, but it weakens the idea that Flathub is the obvious universal app store for Linux. I don't think Flathub is going to dwindle down to nothing tomorrow. It's maybe a little too dramatic, but I think this could be a turning point because the future of software development, it's not going to be no AI touch this. The future, we can already see the trend that the future is going to be, a human is still responsible for what AI helped create, but AI is in that. And, if Flathub cannot find a way to separate responsible AI assisted development from low effort AI slop, then, others like Snap may win may just win out that, because, eventually every app is going to have AI touching it, and there's not going to be anything left to publish at Flathub, except for, I don't know what. But so Snap may win just because Flathub told the generation of developers to go somewhere else. And I don't know. I get the whole fear and the problem, but I think we have to learn how to work with the tools and embrace the tools rather than fighting against them.
Yeah. So, a couple of things. I'm looking right now to see if they've since then made any changes to this, and there is minor updates. It looks like but nothing that is actually changed. Yeah, they've not backed down from this yet. But if you look at some of the commenting that goes around this, like the really hard stance they took in the documentation is not the actual stance that they're using in practice. So there's an exception for existing programs. There's an exception for run times that may have AI generated stuff in it. And this is more just a kind of out of frustration reaction to the communicate the conversations that they have had with various vibe coders. My vibe coded app is different. It should totally get in there. And, they sort of said, well, fine, we'll just remove the exception, and we don't want any of these. And obviously, I think they've been a little overbroad in their statement here, but I think the actual reality of it is going to be a little bit more sane.
Yeah, I mean, I get they're dealing with so much slop, but I think going scorched earth is not the right way, because even though there's exceptions in there, the kind of upfront message is go away. And, there probably was much more articulate ways they could have handled this.
I will say, and I've seen this in other projects, and we've talked about this even on the show here before, just the amount of volume that AI is allowing. The well-intentioned new projects and pull requests that you get now from so many more people because AI enables them to do it. And a lot of those may be decent code or like have decent points or be workable projects, but it's just, we're talking about like 2 to 3 times the amount of work we're asking these maintainers to do. And that part is just like, it's not sustainable. Literally, you just don't have the time to keep up with it. So what some projects have done is they've really leaned into okay, let's use the AI to review these. And then you've got other projects that it's like, we want to still review everything by human, and something else has to change for that to be possible. And I think that's kind of where this comes down to.
I think it's
which direction are you going to go to make it even possible to try to review things?
And I can understand a stance of not wanting like stuff in there that's all AI, but especially things I think like documentation or language translation, accessibility, things like that, I think are perfect use cases that does not significantly, affect or hinder the application itself in how it runs.
Yeah. So Petrowski, who's the guy that wrote the pull request, wrote the change, he noted that the previous gentler policy didn't reduce the workload. So like it was ineffective. Basically, he said we need to be meaner about it to be able to make this work.
I think, but this probably, 2 things are going to happen. One is the maintainers are going to find ways to deal with this. But the other is, it's not going to be, I don't think, that much longer before AI starts charging what AI actually costs. And I think a lot of this, we're going to generate all this stuff on a whim is going to kind of go down. I mean, it won't go away, but it's going to throttle some of this stuff.
I tell you, GitHub with Copilot has definitely started doing that. With this month, they have made changes to their billing. And talk about scorched earth. My goodness. I've seen some projects that are basically, they're going to get charged 10 times more for the same amount of usage. So like going from $600 a month of Copilot usage to suddenly a $6,000 a month bill. It's pretty big deal.
I wonder, what their stance is, AI touching it at all. So if something like Mythos or M-Dash or somebody finds vulnerabilities and they use that discovery to fix it. Oh no, AI touched it. Better not fix that vulnerability.
Yeah, and obviously these guys are not going to that extreme.
Yeah,
they want.
Though the wording is that basically, if you submit a brand new app to Flathub and you used an LLM anywhere in the project, just to review to make sure you don't have any bugs in it, even. The official answer is no.
Well, and I agree with Rob. I mean, especially calling out like documentation or translate. Now you're getting really just pretty, like I said, they went scorched earth, and it just was. I think it's just a bad PR move.
Yeah,
or is it?
It's we're talking about them, so that any publicity is good publicity. I don't know about that in this case. No, it's born out of frustration. It's born out of frustration and just coming to a point to where you're trying to figure out what can we do to make this work at all, and probably not the long-term right solution. But
you mentioned the comment on how the previous did not lower their workload.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that because they weren't targeting the right things? I don't think so. It's probably because people just submitted it anyway. So therefore,
and when they got a note, they argued back.
Well, I was going to say is now that it says no AI, as like people weren't following the rule before, why are they going to follow this rule? They're just going to keep submitting it, and they're going to have to filter through and filter it out.
Well, but now when you say no, there's not really an argument to be made. Oh, but my LLM generated app is different. Doesn't matter. The rule says you're out. At some point, it makes it easier to basically just say, I gave this person an answer. I'm now going to block their email address because you've got, a black and white rule that they're.
What if they targeted things like, okay, they don't want development, but code review?
And is Flathub the only source for Flatpaks?
It's the most popular centralized source, but it's not the only one. No.
It's the one that's usually configured.
So who can creators send a Flatpak to or submit a Flatpak to publish? I
mean, you can publish it yourself. I think Fedora has one. There's several of these different. I've not done a exhaustive search, but I know there are several different Flatpak repositories. Flathub is just the one that has the name recognition.
Wins the popularity contest.
Yeah,
I think if they want to take a hard stance and still allow things that are not way out there, I think they could say no AI created code, even though I think that's maybe a little too far, and just automatically include exceptions for like code review and all the other things that we kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason why they can't.
And I anticipate them backing back from this in the next few days,
or coming out with an alternative hub for AI generated Flatpaks only.
I doubt these guys will do that.
Somebody else might.
But I doubt these guys will do that.
Well, and I've never submitted anything, but I would think at least some of this would be, you kind of have an entry form of like, okay, you're going to submit. It needs to be this quality. It needs to compile right away. It needs to run automatic, because I'm sure they probably have at least some kind of build checker or something, I would think. Maybe not. I mean, but it seems like you could put in also some basic, if it doesn't work or doesn't install properly or whatever, we're just flat out rejecting it. We're not looking at it. We're not, little automation to streamline without even going to AI.
In general, I think there seems to be a little too much of the flat out no going on in the community overall in general in lots of places.
And part of that's because they're not finishing that sentence. No, I don't have time to review this.
Sure. I mean, there's a limited amount. So much of the ecosystem has just been run on essentially goodwill of people working in it for so long. And like this is legitimately one of the problems with the AI boom right now is it enables one part of the open source ecosystem to be much more productive, but it increases the workload on another part of it. And, sort of remains to be seen how that balance is going to work out. And you have things like this as, to some people's thought process, this is the only possible option. Something's got to give. Well, let's just get rid of the AI apps. That's the problem. Let's get rid of them. If you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check out the Untitled Linux Show. You can find us in your favorite podcasting app or subscribe to our YouTube channel down in the links below. See you there.